Welcome one and welcome all to the greatest show of them all. It is the NFC East mixtape, which you can listen to wherever you get your NFC East podcast, blog, whatever networks across the SB Nation universe. You can also watch it on the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube channel or the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. If you listen or watch wherever you are, thank you for being a part of our show. We love you very much. I say we. He is Brandon Lee Gowton from Bleeding Green Nation. I am Ochoa from Blogging the Boys. BLG, happy Halloween to you and me, recording on Tuesday, October 31st, about 11:21 Central Standard Time. The greatest month of the year is about to come to an end.
We have a really spooky show for the audience today. We got my Jack Skellington polo here. We got I have a pumpkin here.
Can you say, is that a plastic pumpkin or is that
no?
real?
It's a real pumpkin.
Okay. I mean, well, I didn't know. Yeah, right before we started recording, Brandon said, hold on. And then you were gone for like 20 minutes and you came back.
I wasn't gone for 20 minutes. I was gone for like 3 minutes.
Did you forget it was Halloween until I told you?
I knew it intellectually, but I kind of forgot because it's a busy day between the NFL trade deadline and the Sixers finally trading James Harden.
Right.
So it's been a busy morning.
Right. Well, it is Halloween and you got into the spirit, so I will as well.
RJ is taking off his headphones for the audio listeners and putting on a mask that he's really struggling to get on his head. But he is working through it, and it's finally on. There he is. Have you played the new game yet?
Yeah. Well, I'm 9% through. It's very difficult to see out of. Did you explain what was happening for the podcast?
Yeah, I did. Of course, okay. I always try to do that for the audio listeners.
Yeah. I'm not going to leave this on all too long, but, want to make sure we get some proper, mileage out of it. The new game is incredible.
I like it.
Yeah.
It is. I'm excited to play it. I haven't played a video game in a long time, just too busy, big time flex, but I love Venom, so I want to play. Venom's in the game, right?
Not at the point that I'm at.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
still
like
on the trailer for the game. They showed like gameplay, or I saw some gameplay with Venom. So
what's very cool is you are both Peter Parker and Miles Morales at different points, and sometimes like both of them in the same mission. So that in and of itself is cool. But there is a lot of Spider-Man lore. Obviously, it's a very cool game if you are a Spider-Man fan. Which if it isn't obvious, I am. My son dressed as Spider-Man at daycare today. We all dressed as Spider-Man last year. That's the thing, BLG, and I think some other parents out there will understand. You can't throw away costumes. You can't get rid of them. He was Spider-Man for trick-or-treating last year, but he gets to wear to daycare this year because it's, it can get dirty there. He's Winnie the Pooh as far as our trick-or-treating that is yet to come.
How do you spell Spider-Man?
Capital SPIDER dash capital MAN.
Good job.
Yeah. I'm going to take this off now. It's very difficult to speak.
All right. RJ's going to take off his headphones and then take off the mask he's wearing. He's back without the mask.
All the bad guys are going to come get me now that I revealed my secret
identity. If you're not watching the NFC East mixtape on YouTube, I mean, what are you doing?
Seriously. I mean, where else do you get that kind of stuff? I mean,
subscribe, bleedinggreenation.com. And the Bleeding Green Nation, well, not bleedinggreenation.com, but the Bleeding Green Nation YouTube and the Blogging the Boys YouTube.
Big day, obviously, besides the Spider-Man mask happening. Now, some of what we talk about could be dated by the time people get to listen to this on November
that's
1st.
No different than not even just every NFC's mixtape.
We got a big trade that happened right before we started recording, which is a very good thing. But you mentioned it. Congratulations, James Harden, no longer a part of the city of Philadelphia. We've got a lot of trades, actually, more than we ever have to talk about in a single episode. We have games won between two divisional teams, and we are, of course, talking in the lead up, or I guess the week of the Dallas Cowboys visiting the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday afternoon. We did not get the Rangers-Phillies World Series, T's and P's on that. That would have maybe been the only thing that could have made this a little bit bigger. But on the subject of that, and obviously we have a lot to get to, our plan is to have a live mixtape on Thursday evening in parallel with Thursday Night Football. Thank goodness it's not a great game. I did want to shoehorn in. We are going to get a Pennsylvania-based team in the Steelers facing off against a team that has a star on its helmet, because the Titans have those three little ones that border the logo.
Steelers and the Eagles used to be the same team at one point.
Anyway, so it's kind of a proper, two teams to work in parallel with our live mixtape. So that will be streaming for sure on the Blog of the Boys YouTube channel. We always run into difficulties there, but we will of course podcast it and everything. We'll make sure that you have points of access to it on social media as well. We are also working on coordinating some friends to stop by, Brandon, because it's Cowboys Eagles week, so it has to be a big one.
I mean, that's too soon. Rest in peace, Matthew Perry.
Oh man, that was man. I mean, like celebrity deaths obviously are impact people in different ways. I, like a lot of people our age, grew up with Friends, and I've seen
You
it a million times.
literally, were friends with Matthew Perry's character.
Yeah, I saw this great quote about celebrity deaths. I mean, not that they're great, but it was like they impact people so severely in some ways because their characters are there for you on days where you're not feeling great, and their characters picked you up, in down moments and things like that, and so there's a sense of relationship there, and so
Parasocial
really,
relationship.
yeah, really, 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 really sad. One of the funniest people to ever live. And so rest in peace, Matthew Perry.
And your friend as Ross.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big thing for me. I feel like I looked a lot more like him when I was in high school. When my hair's shorter, it really hits like early season Ross. But so, a lot of I didn't know when I was in high school and I would watch the show that I would go on to talk for a living about something. And this, Friends helped morph my personality in some ways, at least like the way I speak and converse in social settings, and help me get through being awkward, like moments like this. So, what do you want to do first? We have games, we have trades, we have.
You got to go in order, baby.
Okay, so divisional standing still the same. The Philadelphia Eagles continue to reign atop the NFC East. They beat the Washington Commanders 38-31. The Commanders going to get a lot of play today here on the mixtape, but 30-31 the final score. I've been saying for weeks that I wanted to see the Eagles, out of a point of interest, be in kind of a down spot, like a 14-0 spot. This was 14-3. It was a heavy noon window on Sunday afternoon, so I couldn't keep as much tabs on this as I wanted to with the Cowboys playing, but it was fascinating to kind of box score watch all day long. Credit to the Eagles. They put their foot in the ground, dug in. AJ Brown. That is going to be the worst take I will have ever had. By the way. Like, my Colts one is among the very best. This is the exact opposite. Like, I'm never speaking about AJ Brown ever again.
It's to the degree. It's not even just like, okay, pass or fail, like right or wrong. It's like to the degree. And I'm not even trying to slam you with that. I'm just saying, like,
no,
he's been better than anyone could have even, he's been better than the Eagles could have realistically hoped for. I mean, he's a top what player in the NFL right now? Like,
I mean, if you include quarterbacks and adjust for the inherent value, I mean, I would say there are like 5 players who can challenge for being, among quarterbacks in the NFL. I've said Micah Parsons is in that mix. Like, Myles Garrett's in that mix, TJ Watt. Like, there's a handful of defenders of offensive players. AJ Brown is absolutely kind of leading the way there. Maybe Christian McCaffrey when he's hot, Justin Jefferson, obviously, maybe Jamar Chase. It feels like Jamar's kind of cooled a little bit. Right now, that's kind of it. I mean, you could argue some offensive linemen in certain cases, but AJ Brown is number 1 on that non-quarterback list.
He literally did something no receiver has ever done with 125 receiving yards in 6 straight games. And I mean, there's really no signs that, like, he's slowing down. I mean, obviously he won't just do this probably for the rest of the season, but I wouldn't be surprised if he adds like a game or 2 more, potentially even more onto that. He's unguardable right now. That's the thing. Like, the Commanders had good coverage on him too. This wasn't just like, oh, blown coverage or, oh, AJ beat them so bad. The Commanders defended him perfectly on some of those plays, and it just didn't matter because AJ Brown is that much better. He makes incredible catches that can't be guarded. Credit to Jalen Hurts, for giving AJ the chance and putting the ball, especially on the one-handed at first touchdown where he grabs it with one hand and then secures it with the other. Like, that's just thrown exactly to where only AJ can potentially get that. And, the defender has no chance at all. I think it was Benjamin St. Juste playing perfect coverage. Just, you can't do anything about it. So, yeah, I mean, he's been insane. And he basically is the Eagles offense right now. That's fine because, like, it's working. Why not go to it? And yeah, for as much as ire as there's been about Eagles offensive coordinator Brian Johnson, I mean, Eagles are like they're 3rd in points, just right behind the Cowboys. They are like, first and first downs, and they're high ranking in a lot of offensive categories. The offense is humming. like were not that far away from putting up 52. They didn't do that, but they were like one Jalen Hurts tush push fumble at the goal line, which I'm not really like worried about that being an issue because it's been an unstoppable play for them.
It's
Way
not
more often.
unstoppable anymore, though. It was
I
literally
mean, like
stopped.
nearly unstoppable
Okay,
play.
as
A
long
very
as we're
high
literally correct.
percent, a high percentage, a incredibly high percentage play for them. And then the Kenny Gainwell fumble, which is just, I don't know why we're using Kenny Gainwell in the red zone, but in any case, both of those happened with inside the 5. I mean, like they were knocking on the door. A 50-point performance there ended up with 38. Offense is humming.
I did want to add one more thing on AJ Brown. When I saw this, like I kind of, again, you kind of see things popping throughout the day. And then, sometimes, and we forgot Tyreek Hill in the discussion of players in that capacity. And so, like, sometimes Tyreek will have a big day, and it's like, well, of course, he had like an 84-yard touchdown. You know what I mean? Because that's like what Tyreek Hill does. No, the longest reception that AJ Brown had was 25 yards. I mean, so like, it's not like, he had this big chunk, you know what I mean, that like
Yep.
kept the 125 whatever streak alive.
He can do that though. That's the thing. It's just
Sure.
like there's really no weakness with AJ. Like he can go. He wins at every level. He can catch a pass short and break tackles. He can win in the intermediate game, which he does a lot. He can go deep. He can be a deep threat, but he doesn't have to. To your point.
It was funny from like an NFL culture standpoint to see the tush push stopped, and to see like everyone's brains kind of break in the moment. And I do think that this kind of speaks to the weird commanders of it all. I think this is going to be an episode where we like intermingled the discussion for all 4 teams, just because there's so much happening. I heard a take from Greg Rosenthal on the latest Around the NFL podcast, where he said that this relationship that the Commanders kind of have with the Eagles right now reminds him of the one that the St. Louis Rams used to have with the Seahawks, like in the heyday of the Seahawks, like just this weird, remember how like Jeff Fisher's Rams, like for whatever reason, like always hung with or beat the Seahawks. And that kind of began the weird NFC West relationship that we still kind of see a little bit today. But it was strange, like how that was like their kryptonite. And you can't really say that because the Eagles won both of these games. But the Commanders, I mean, it was, I imagine you were stressed or tense or whatever, like, and to be able to stop the tush push. I mean, like, I would say, if you ranked the 10 most stressful moments of, Eagles football the last 2 years, maybe Washington is responsible for like 5 of them. I mean, like that is weird, but it's true nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, when the tush push, you're fumbling on that instead of getting a touchdown at the 1 yard line, and I believe I
Massive
tweeted
swing.
it out at that point. It's like it's just not your day at that point. Like that's not like, well, it was a bad call or the players didn't execute properly, which they didn't. But I mean, it's not like again something that's characteristic as much as it's just okay. This is the downside of that play, I guess, and it rarely ever happens, but it did happen in that moment, and it was a big point in the game. But outside of that, I mean, Jalen Hurts was really good in this game, especially considering that he didn't have his legs so much available to him. Apparently, he was kind of hobbling around out there. He did pick up 1 first down early in the game with his legs, so still has that ability if he really needed to. But also that was earlier on, and as the game went on, we did not see him run, but he didn't need to because he was sensational with his arm. Ended up with 4 touchdown passes. It's one of the, I think it's the 3rd highest passer rating or 2nd he's ever had. It's the 2nd, I believe, in his career in a game. So really sharp performance from him. And sometimes, unlike the week before, really the 2 weeks before against the Dolphins and the Jets, your defense isn't going to come through for you sometimes. Sometimes it's going to be a shootout and you need your quarterback to put up the points there and win you that game. And that's exactly what he did. So that's kind of an encouraging sign going into this stretch coming up ahead. It gives you some level of confidence that he can do just that.
I'm genuinely asking. It's 11 turnovers right now.
I think it's 12 in the last 9 games. And you always ask, why do I do that?
Why?
But it's true.
But why?
It's statistically true.
I'm not denying disputing the truth of what you're saying, but why go to just that game? It's not even like that makes it 10 or that makes it some even number. Like if you just go off of this season, that's 8 games. Like that's way more than enough of a sample size. Like, there's just, unless you're doing that to positively inflate the other stats from, the way he played in the Super Bowl, maybe that's your angle.
I'm just saying it's been an issue for him in the last 9 games he's played.
So,
and if you're just going this season, then yeah, it's been an issue for him this season.
I guess the only way I would kind of like step in line with this weird thought is the 2 games prior to the Super Bowl were not games that required Jalen to be, serious. Right. I mean, again, like being
he didn't have
silly.
to carry the team with his arm.
Right. But he did obviously against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And then he has every game of the regular season. So that's a fair bit of analysis that in the last 9 games where like, it was stressful, it was tense, and you weren't just like walking all over opponents. He's turned the ball over 12 times.
Exactly.
That's an absolute trend. What was the last? Again, I'm genuinely asking. Has he played a game without any turnovers this year?
I believe so. Because he's had multiple in a couple, so I
A
don't
lot.
think
I mean,
it's.
more than a couple if he's had none in one. But sorry, this is a weird episode once
I think the
again.
Rams game he didn't have one. Yes.
Um, I was just making sure there's chatter that
He also
Devonte
didn't
Adams
have
is not
one
requesting a trade. So, go ahead.
in. Wait, actually, no, he did in the Rams game. Sorry, he didn't have one in the first Commanders game. He did not turn the ball over in that game, and he also didn't turn the ball over in. No, that's it. Every other game he has, except this wasn't like an
So this
egregious
wasn't
turnover.
this
It's
wasn't
just
the interception against the Jets, but
I
it's
don't
a
think it was a
turnover
bad
nonetheless.
decision. It was just like the snap. Sometimes the snap gets bobbled. That's not like the player is bad or like it's you can't like I don't that's not that doesn't point to a greater flaw as much as it's just like sometimes you snap the football and a weird thing happens.
Well, what is the status of his injury? What was the report that he got worked on for like an hour after the game?
I think that was a little like I think that's one of those things where it was written in a story. It was so the context of what you're referring to is there was a column, not even like a report on the Inquirer. So it's not even supposed to be about like newsy thing. Like that's not the point of the column. The column was about like some bigger theme. But, the NFL aggregator accounts, which have been enabled by Elon's Twitter, giving everyone just blue checks, and then everyone just, and then everyone aggregates this stuff without a lot of context. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it might be factually true. In any case, Jay Glazer had reported before the game on Sunday that Jalen Hurts is dealing with a bone bruise in his knee. He's been dealing with it for multiple weeks. We saw him kind of limping out there at times on Sunday. So he seems to be less than 100%, but I mean, a lot of players are banged up at this point in the season, and he hasn't been listed on the injury report, so I guess it's not serious enough. I think the qualifier there is like a player getting treatment is has to be on the injury report or whatever. I saw something Florio write about that. Clearly, the Eagles haven't had to put him on there, so I don't think it's the biggest deal in the world. It's not nothing because any kind of injury to a quarterback, even if a quarterback has like, a sore finger or a stub toe, like that's news because it's a quarterback and it's a big deal. Remember how Tom Brady had that wrapping on his thumb at one point and it was like and he was wearing gloves and it was like there's like a
Well,
whole press conference about it. Yeah,
remember
it's a big
he was like, wasn't Tom Brady on like the injury report is like probable for like 93 weeks in a row or something at one point in time? Like it's
probably.
just
I don't know.
yeah. I mean, again, I wasn't bringing it up to like, make a big stink about it, but again, it was just something that was floating in the ether. So I do think it's important to address it and contextualize it. I don't know if there's any other real Eagles takeaways at this point. I mean, it's AJ Brown is a boss. Jalen Hurts did what was necessary. Had a the tush push fail, and now it's on to November.
Last thing I have is just, really not good defensive showing a week after shutting down, basically, relative to the Dolphin standards, shutting down their offense. And
Right.
then we'll get to this, I guess, more in the commander section, but not being able to defend Sam Howell for some reason. I mean, he is just thriving against the Eagles, especially in stark contrast to any other game he plays. He's not been nearly as good. So that's really weird. And I don't fully know what to make of that other than Eric Bieniemy apparently just has Sean Desai's number and no one else's. So that's a weird thing. I'm not ready to say the defense is just bad again just because they had a bad game. I still think, there are things from that Dolphins game to take away positively. I guess one thing that is worth monitoring is that the Eagles have used, I think, like 7 or 8 different lineups in the secondary over 8 games. So they haven't had a lot of stability there. And that kind of speaks to why they're having some secondary issues in addition to, talent maybe having some problems, but not having the continuity also hurting them. So maybe if they can actually get some stability there, that would help them at some point, but we'll see.
What were your initial takeaways of Kevin Byard?
I mean, it was his first game
Sure. I mean, all that,
on short
like
notice.
that's Cowboys fans are going to be curious leading into this week. So,
I
like, I
didn't
mean,
I didn't see anything from him noteworthy really either way. He seemed like just fine out there. I don't think he was giving up big plays. I don't think he made big plays. He was kind of just there. He played 100% of the snap, so I think that's good that he was able to do that on short notice is a nice sign. But yeah, again, with all the moving parts in the secondary and him only getting to Philly a few days before the game, I can't really, I didn't I didn't have much expectations for him, and I think that's a position anyway that a player could potentially get more comfortable with as the season goes along.
All right, let's move on because we have a lot. But again, AJ Brown, boss mode, Jalen Hurts still was necessary. The Commanders weirdly competitive against the Eagles. The Dallas Cowboys got out to an early lead and just kept pouring it on. 42-20 was the final score against the Rams. I did want to get in right now. Dak Prescott threw 4 touchdowns, and so did Jalen Hurts, obviously, and so did Sam Howell. I saw this from the NFL on CBS Instagram account. I don't know if you saw it. So Hurts, Howell, and Dak all threw 4 touchdowns on Sunday. The Giants have 4 passing touchdowns on the season.
Mm. How many yards did that Tommy DeVito guy end up with?
I don't, we'll get there, but anyway, this was this had like trap game written all over it for the Cowboys. What with lots of DFW people excited about the Rangers in the World Series, with the Cowboys coming out of their bye, with the week after this game being on the road against the Eagles. We obviously saw the Cowboys look ahead to San Francisco, and that was a big reason why they lost. We kind of think in our observations to the Cardinals, even though it wasn't directly the week after, but this was an impressive kind of not that from the Cowboys. Like I said, it really got away from the Rams over the course of 2 minutes and 58 seconds, to use the great Bob Sturm's analysis. It near the end of the first quarter, Dallas was already up 10-3. And then the pick six happened. Deron Bland, who recorded his 3rd pick six of the season, he has just been this incredible find for the Cowboys, obviously, and is thriving with the new responsibilities in the aftermath of Trayvon Diggs' injury. So the Deron Bland pick happens, the pick six, excuse me, and then early in the second quarter, very early, the Cowboys stifle the Rams offense, mostly because of Micah Parsons, and Sam Williams, who was the gunner, blocks the punt. Okay, holy crap! But punt goes out for a safety. Hey, it would have been cool if he had recovered this for a touchdown, but he blocked it very ferociously. Not the biggest deal in the world. And then Kevontae Turpin has his best return of the season immediately after. Holy crap, everything is going right for the Cowboys. And then like 5 seconds later, Dak hit CeeDee Lamb for his 2nd touchdown of the day. It was over right then, and everything was kind of pretty much in cruise control after that. It was Dallas's 11th straight win at home. They've won every game at home since the season opener last year. And it was their 29th overall win since 2021. I tweeted this out. The only teams who have won more games, regular season games, obviously, than them in that time are the Chiefs with 32, and the Eagles and Bills are both tied at 29. It's 28 for Dallas. Sorry, 28. Whatever. They're behind. You get my point. I'm getting the math wrong, but still.
What do you think we learned about the Cowboys from that game?
Well, that they weren't looking ahead, that they clearly identified some issues on offense. That's what I think maybe was the biggest takeaway. I wrote this big article right when the bye week began about how the Cowboys weren't utilizing the middle of the field at all. And that really changed in this game. Jake Ferguson had the first touchdown of the day. It was probably the prettiest catch that any Cowboy had. And it was right over the middle of the field. And we've seen Dak really thrive there in the past with different tight ends. And Jake Ferguson's now the beneficiary. I don't take anything away from him. But, again, Dak has made that position succeed a lot in the past. We learned that they realized, hey, maybe we should force feed the ball to CeeDee Lamb. We have been saying forever as Cowboys fans, even prior to CeeDee, like, why don't you use Amari Cooper the way that the Packers use Devontae Adams, or the way that the Rams use Cooper Kupp? Like, why don't, like, this dude should have 1 billion targets? Like, why, everybody was so pissed off that Michael Gallup had 10 targets against the Chargers, and all due respect to Michael Gallup, that made sense. Do you know how many targets CeeDee Lamb had in this game?
I don't.
He had 14. What would you guess were the next highest? The number of the next highest by a Cowboy?
5.
4. Oh, wow, you failed all over the place. So again, it was the CeeDee Lamb show. I mean, and good, like that's what it should be. They also learned that, hey, Brandon Cooks kind of a deep threat. Like maybe you should let Brandon Cooks just take the top off of defenses. So I don't know that the reaction is the same as after week 1 and week 2, where it was like, oh, this team walks on water. Everything they touch turns to gold. They can't make any single mistakes. But this really on offense looked like the identifying of problems, the assessing of them over the course of the bye, and the implementation of some different things coming out of it. And again, I would say the final takeaway would be that they didn't get caught in this game, which is a new thing for them. It is maybe not new, but this is a hallmark of the Mike McCarthy era. And everybody can make their jokes, but they are so different in that they don't get, they don't sleepwalk to these games. They beat the crap out of bad teams. They defend home turf. Those were not things that they did in the Jason Garrett era, which again, I'm not saying that because Mike McCarthy is better than Jason Garrett, everybody freak out, but this is a newfound sort of phenomenon for the team.
I think we've seen the Cowboys look really good when they've looked really good this year. And when they don't look really good, they look pretty bad. So it's just, I know that sounds very simple and reductive, but it's one of the two extremes, basically, it feels like this year. They're kind of a Jekyll and Hyde team. I don't know. I guess the Jekyll is the good side. They've been more Jekyll than Hyde, but the Hyde has been.
I really don't. Is that a Christmas thing? I really don't know.
What are you talking about?
Is Jekyll and Hyde a Christmas story? Like, I feel like it was.
No.
It's a thing that's around Christmas.
No. I thought it's
I always thought that, I've never read.
It's like a scary thing.
But I thought the timing of the story took place at Christmas time, but I could be wrong.
I mean, I don't know if that's true. I'm looking it up here.
I've never read
anything.
I don't know if it's something to read. Is it a movie? Like, is there a Jekyll? I understand the reference, but I don't know where it comes from or its point of origin. By the way, while you're looking that up, thank you.
Gothic novella.
Well, thank you to all of the mixologists who told me over the course of last week that Bruce Springsteen playing or not playing rather, and Huey Lewis and the News playing when Michael Scott thinks that apparently it's a joke that Michael Scott thinks Huey Lewis and the News are Bruce Springsteen. That's why it's playing on that episode of The Office. It's not an accident. And I was also reminded several times that I've complained about this in the past. So now I'm starting to we've done the mixtape so long that I've forgotten things that I complained about in the past. So that was kind of a cool tangent. But anyway.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think it's holiday related. What's that movie? Oh, The Page Master. I love that movie. There's a Dr. and Jekyll and Mr. Hyde reference in that movie with is that Macaulay Culkin?
I would also add
maybe not
to the things that we learned. So Dallas went into the half with the lead. It was 33-9, and they had really beat up Matthew Stafford, which is, I mean, nobody's proud of that or anything. Certainly hope Stafford's all right. But the Rams, to their credit, came out in the second half, got the ball, and drove all the way down the field and scored. And it was, I don't know that it was stressful, but I do think that some Cowboys fans, and so the Rams got the 2-point conversion because they were down 24 points. So it's okay, all of a sudden you've got, a lot of the third quarter and the whole fourth quarter left. If you go 3 and out, you punt the ball back, maybe they go make this a 1-possession game really quickly. And the Cowboys, to their credit, a drive that took up 17 plays and 9 minutes and 57 seconds off of the clock in the third quarter was just exactly what was needed. It just deflated whatever air the Rams were able to kind of put back into their balloon. Dallas only kicked a field goal, didn't score a touchdown, but they pushed it once again to a 3-possession game. Also, in case you didn't see, Brandon Aubrey had 2 field goals in this game, which gives him 18 consecutive ones to start the season in his career. That has tied the NFL record. So if Brandon Aubrey makes his next field goal, whenever that comes, he will have the record all to himself.
Yes. Oh, like I was saying, I don't think we learned a lot about the Cowboys in the bigger picture in terms of we can trust them now to take care of the inferior teams. They've demonstrated that more than adequately. The question still remains, what did they do against the NFL's elites, which we will certainly get to see this weekend. But they put themselves in a spot where if they can, then they're sitting pretty, because not to spoil the upcoming week, but if they win this game, if they beat the Eagles, then the Eagles are on their bye next week, and then the Cowboys get the Giants, who they always beat. And at that point, they're Eagles and Cowboys would both be 7-2, and the Cowboys would have the tiebreaker. So they would be in a really good spot. Obviously, this week's game is huge.
And after that, the Eagles played
really tough stretch coming up for the Eagles.
Yeah. Who's the first game out of the bye?
So it's the gauntlet coming up here is Cowboys at home, bye week, Chiefs.
Right.
With the Chiefs also coming off their bye, Eagles and
that's
Chiefs
in Kansas City, right?
In Kansas City.
Okay.
And then I forgot off the top of my head, but they're playing
the Bills and the Niners
and the 49ers, and then they play this Cowboys again, and then they play the Seahawks. So it's a real tough stretch coming up. Now, Cowboys have their own little tough stretch coming up a little bit later when they have to play Seahawks, Eagles, Bills, Dolphins, Lions. Heading into week 18.
The Cowboys through Thanksgiving. This Eagles game is the toughest game that they have between now and post Thanksgiving. They get the Eagles on
Yes.
Sunday. They get the Giants at home next Sunday, which you talked about. They generally own them, and the Giants have
Mhm.
admitted to being sellers. We'll get there in a moment. And then they visit the Panthers, who did get their first win of the season, but that is the Sunday before Thanksgiving, and then they get the Commanders on
Mhm.
Thanksgiving itself. And so we've been talking a lot at Blog on the Boys about how you got to stack some wins up right here because to your point, the Thursday after Thanksgiving is Seattle, and then you get Philly at home after the mini bye, and then after that, back to back, you go to Buffalo,
In
Miami,
Buffalo, in
and then
Miami,
you
yeah.
left out after Miami, you come home and you host Detroit.
No, I said
Um,
that. I mentioned that
oh
there.
my bad. Well, I
I said
wasn't listening because I'm
Lions
brain.
leading up to week 18.
Yeah, so this is the time, and if the Cowboys get this win, they'll have road divisional wins against the Giants and Eagles already in hand. But again, that's a big if, obviously, that we'll talk about more as we get to the lead up of the game and obviously our second show of the week. Let's get to the Giants game, I guess, really quickly because we don't need to spend a ton of time. Then we'll take
Oh,
a
you don't
break
wanna
and
take
get
a
to all the.
break?
No. We'll do this game really quickly and then
Wow.
break and then all the trades and stuff. So the New York Giants lost.
They lost. Their
Uh, I,
season's over. They're 2-6.
I really have nothing to add. I mean, beyond that, do you know how many passes they attempted in this game?
I meant to well, I meant to say because I asked earlier, how many yards did Tommy DeVito end up with?
It
And
was
it's
-1.
yeah, it's fewer than you and we had more passing yards than Tommy DeVito on Sunday. So,
They
that's not
they
good.
only threw the ball 14 times. Saquon Barkley had 36 carries. Dude,
Did you
what?
see the tweet from, was it Art Stapleton? The one Giants, right? Or maybe it was no, sorry, it was Connor Hughes. Connor Hughes, who does, like,
Oh,
Jets
yeah,
and
who covers
Giants
them
for
both? Yeah.
SNY, who,
Mhm.
like I think he had tweeted out, I guess, as the Giants were lining up for that 35-yard field goal by Graham Gano at the end. Um, by the way, I mean, and Ed Valentine even said this at bigblueview.com, and I feel like Ed's a little bit more, like old school minded. But he ripped Brian Dable for not going for it late in the game where it's 4th and 1. And if you get the first down, game's over. Obviously, you give the Jets a chance potentially to move into field goal range if you get stopped in that 4th and 1. But I mean, Graham Gano apparently had been dealing with some shaky kicks recently. So what are you doing? This is another example of Brian Dable not being good at all this year and being a coward. I mean, you have to go for it there. You just have to because
Dude,
even you have to. It's a yard. Just get it. And I know there's risk in not getting it, but there's also a risk in missing a field goal because if you kick the field goal, then you turn the ball over from the spot, where the ball is kicked from. So you're giving up even more yards and giving the Jets a little bit closer of a chance, and you're also not taking as much time off the clock as you potentially could take off on a 4th down play there. So I don't think it's hindsight to say that they should have. They're also bad. Just
dude, they're
go
so
for
bad.
it.
This is
And sorry, one last thing. You have to eliminate overtime as much as you possibly can because you have Tommy DeVito there. You don't want to go into overtime with Tommy DeVito at quarterback. You have to be we need to win this game in regulation, so we need to maximize their chances of doing that. And what you can do by doing that is make sure you just get the first down and then you win the game. Game is over.
um I don't mean to keep quizzing you. Do you know I can't stress enough you get this, but when your team plays at noon, I know we celebrated that last week and how awesome it was, but you things slip through the cracks because so much is happening at that time. So I got caught up on this game, but it wasn't until halftime of the Monday night game when Chris Berman was kind of flying through the league. I hadn't connected this. Do you know how many punts there were in this game? This is probably on the Jets too, but do
No.
you know how many? What would you
I'm gonna
guess?
guess 15.
There were 24 punts in this game.
How is that even possible?
So I think punt yardage is a dumb thing to track, but whatever.
Not
It's
not at that point.
so
What else
there
are you
were
tracking in the game
there
if
were
not that?
over 1,000 yards
Wow,
of punt
that's insane.
coverage in this game. That is amazing. I mean,
Man, the special teams dudes must have been tired. That's a lot of running. You're running down full force down the field.
I think it was the NFL subreddit. It might have been the Jets one, but they were talking about this game, and there was a you know how people their flair or whatever is the team that they root
Mhm.
for. Some Jets fan was like, "I'm really sorry to anyone who watched this game." It was so gross. Man, just it's
It's
more
really
than
fitting. It's really fitting because New York football has been total garbage since,
I know that we
2017.
I know we said that the Giants now clearly over delivered last year and that warped expectations. But this isn't even in line. Like, even if last year had just been like a normal year one of a rebuild, this isn't year two. You know what I mean? Like, this is regression for what year two should be. This is really, really, really bad. But okay, we have lots
Well,
of.
last thing I'll say is like it's regression in a way too, where it's not just like, oh, things are out of their control. Dable's doing everything he can. No, like Dable has been really bad this year, and I think that's concerning.
Okay, let's take a very quick break to hear a word from our sponsors. Welcome back. Brandon, while we were gone, you and I decided to do all of the classic sports radio Halloween things. You said spooky early on, so now I have to ask you, is candy corn good or bad?
It's very good.
I agree with you. You actually had a take on Halloween candy after we recorded last week that I thought was really profound. That
What
I
did I
would like
say?
you to share because
I don't
it was
remember
about.
what I said.
I want to give you a clue, but I don't want to steal your thunder because it was a real. I don't want to like take credit for this. I've already taken credit for it like 6 times in my personal life, and shared it with people and acted like it was my take because I'm a thief. But it
Naturally.
was about Twix Mini. Do you remember this Mini Twix?
No, what did I say?
All right, this was copyright Brandon Lee
I
Gowton.
remember
You
saying something, but I can't remember what it was.
You said that mini Twix was the perfect like mini like quantity. That a lot of
Oh,
mini
okay.
candies,
Yes.
you like they're either too much or too little, whatever. A mini Twix is
Yes.
like perfect, and I agree with you
Right.
completely.
Yeah, I stand by it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to like turn down a full size Twix, but I think yeah, relative to the other fun
It's too
size
much.
candies, if you're telling me I can have one fun size candy from all the options, I'm probably going with that.
You're going also with the verbiage fun size as opposed to mini. Interesting.
Mini, fun size, which isn't really fun. It's never more
Right.
fun to have less candy.
Right. Okay. Then that's that. So I want to reiterate. We need to reiterate that it's now 11:57 Central on Halloween. So it's very possible, in fact, some would argue probable, to Brandon's point earlier, given the history of this show, that something else has happened. But to date, Brandon, we have 4 trades involving NFC East teams. Now, we talked last week about the Eagles trading for Kevin Byard. We obviously talked about him when we talked about the game. There was a second Eagles trade. It was a small one, but can you just
Mhm.
please let us know what it was that happened on Monday
Yeah.
afternoon?
They traded Contavious Street, who was basically like the fifth defensive tackle in their 6-man defensive tackle rotation, to the Falcons. They also traded a 2025 seventh, and they got back a conditional 2024 6th-round pick, which the condition is Contavious Street has to play 6 games. I would think he'll hit that, barring injury, because the Falcons just lost Grady Jarrett, and they
Mhm.
went out of their way to acquire Contavious Street, so I think they would want to play him. But basically, what to know is that the Eagles gave up a 2024 sixth in the Kevin Byard trade. So this kind of, in addition to a 2024 fifth. So this kind of helps them recoup value there. And it clears up a spot for Moro Ojomo, who they drafted in the 7th round this year and kept on the roster as their 7th defensive tackle. But he kind of was blocked from being able to play. So not really the biggest deal. It's kind of funny because it's like, wait, they're selling even though they're good this year? Not really. It's just that they had an expendable player. They could get something for him, and they did.
Okay, thank you for the update. I think you would agree, though, some pretty inconsequential trade. There's 2 others that are of extreme significance. Also on Monday afternoon, the New York Giants traded away Leonard Williams. Leonard's finally out of New York.
What are the Seahawks doing? What are they
So, but
doing?
but Leonard Williams is finally free. Like we talked about and we joke about all the time, the like funk that New York football's been in since 2017. Leonard
Mhm.
Williams is finally free. Like you know what I mean? Like head to the West Coast, baby. But he is headed to the Seattle Seahawks. You mentioned this. The Giants received in return for Leonard Williams a 2024 second round draft pick, obviously. So that's next year. I know that 2024 sounds like it's like 5 years away. This next year, dude. And a
That's a fair
2025
point.
fifth. So the big thing is the second round pick next year. This is smart if you're the Giants. You've got to come to terms with what the season is. You got to cash out on what you can. You got to acquire a lot of assets because you're going to need an influx of young talent.
I can't believe. I mean, great job by Joe Shane getting a 2nd-round pick from the Seahawks. What are the Seahawks doing? Like, what?
Yeah, this is a little weird.
What? Why? Why? Who? Like, why do you have to have Leonard Williams for what? Like half a season? I don't
There
know.
was
Did
all the
they?
there was all the chatter before the season about how their like run defense was going to be terrible. You know what I mean? So like, I mean, again, like if I'm reaching to explain it, I mean
The
That's
Giants
about
have
as
had
far as
bad
I have
run
to go.
defense with Leonard
I'm
Williams.
not. I'm not like advocating for the move, and I'm certainly not happy because I'm pissed because this was a net positive for the Giants. But
In his last 20 games, Leonard Williams has 4 sacks.
I don't think you should base it all on sacks. I mean, but yeah,
That's a
that's
big.
still a
You're
tough
giving up
scene.
a second round pick, RJ, and he's turning
Uh,
30 next year. And that's even if he resigns. Okay,
I
let's go
mean,
back to his last 3 years, Mr. DeMarcus Lawrence. Don't put it all in sacks. 37 games. He has 10 and a half sacks in 37 games. You gave up a second round pick. And you're like, now see, the thing here is that the Giants took on a lot of the money, like to get a better
right?
pick, which is smart. That's what they should do. Who cares? Who
Yeah,
cares about the money? Like that doesn't matter. Get the more valuable asset. That's the way more, harder thing to come by. You can always make cap space or whatever. You can't just make a second round pick. So the Giants did very well for themselves here. They were honest with themselves. They weren't like, they didn't buy and they were willing to sell. So I think this is a of a trade. A plus. This is a great trade by the Giants and a very dumb one by the Seahawks.
we'll get to the Commanders and Bears in a moment, but to spoil that a bit, everyone's kind of dragging the Bears for trading for a player that is in a contract year, right? Like sending a second round draft pick, and like nobody, to your point, really kind of that I saw like trash the Seahawks. Like maybe there was like some points of criticism, but there was no like, what the hell are you doing? Like I think that does kind of speak to like it's vogue right now to hate on the Bears. The Chase Claypool trade doesn't, isn't necessarily like work or didn't work out for them. So like it's like, oh, it's another thing, but it's like this is kind of the exact same thing. Obviously the Seahawks are competitive, don't get me wrong, but it's a strange move, like to give up a second, like you're gonna extend him, I presume, right? Like you didn't send this for no reason. So I mean, I guess, but to your point, you're extending somebody who's going to be 30 by the time pen meets the
And it's a
paper
lot
and
of
all that
money.
shit.
He's going to be costly. Like he's made a lot of money in the past. You're not getting him for cheap, and he has leverage because you gave up a second round pick for him.
I do think this is the clearest indication, not that we were lacking it, that the Giants are waving the white flag on this season. And how could you not? I mean, you know what I mean? Like you're 2-6. It is what it is.
Not even are you just 2-6, but I mean, like the Eagles and the Cowboys are two of the best teams in the conference. So like, you're not climbing out of that hole to overtake them.
Right. And again, you got a second round draft pick. The rest of this season is about figuring crap out. Whoever else you can move, you have to. And by the way, we will address the whatever moves do happen, obviously, between now and our live show on the live show, particularly if they involve the Eagles or the Cowboys. But are we done with the Giants? I mean, because again, this was kind of like this was a big win for them.
Well, who do they have next? Didn't they have this crazy schedule here?
The
Is that done
Giants
now?
next, and I'm glad you brought this
Well,
up.
we'll get to that
Actually,
later. Never mind.
they visit the Raiders next, but for what it's worth, the Eagles still have to play the Giants once, correct?
They have to play them. Wait, the Giants?
Yeah, or the Eagles haven't played the Giants
The
at all
Eagles
yet.
play the Giants. Are you ready for this? In week 16 and week 18.
Dumb. That's like
So
the
dumb.
Broncos Chiefs thing we just saw. I hate
So
that.
dumb.
I mean, at least they don't play them in back-to-back games like they did the Commanders last
I
year. That was
guess
stupid, but
at least you can say this is dumb we're on the same page here. At least in the Chiefs Broncos thing, it was on a Thursday night, the first one. So there's like more days between those two. Like, but
I mean,
still,
I
dumb.
suppose. But again, we agree this is stupid. So no Leonard Williams for those games, obviously, but the Eagles still have to play the Seahawks. And similarly, the Cowboys have already played the Giants once. So they will not see him next Sunday when they host the Giants. But they will see him obviously with the Seahawks on Thursday
Which
Night
is
Football.
worse because you'd rather him be on the Giants still.
Sure. Okay, so we're ready to move on
to the Commanders, who
so this had never happened before in the history of the NFC's mixtape. I guess it had with Carson Wentz. So both times have involved the Commanders. But that was a trade that spurred an emergency episode.
The first.
Right. This happened right before our normal scheduled recording. It is obviously the day of the deadline for you and I in terms of our time. And the Washington Commanders, well, first of all, there was the report. I think it's silly when these things come out, but it is just what it is. There was the report on Sunday, like in the morning dump of news or whatever, that the game against the Eagles was going to be like a domino effect or a fork in the road for the Commanders. Like, if the brass tacks of it all was like, if they lose, they're going to trade people. Like, and it was like, well, duh, they're probably going to lose. Although it was 14-3 at one point. So, what the hell do we know? But anyway, Commanders lose. So that sends them down one path. They traded away Montez Sweat to the Chicago Bears. We obviously hinted at this and everybody knows about it by now. It was a second round draft pick. What are you doing, Ryan Poles? But that's neither here nor there. In 2024, A+ move for the Commanders in my book. You gotta cash out now. And at the time of our recording, Chase Young is still on the team. Grant Paulson tweeted out that the Commanders preferred to move Chase Young, but they liked the compensation for Sweat. So you can't blame him for this. But again, A+ even. I mean, he was in a contract year. You had to do it.
I saw if the season ended today, which it doesn't, the Bears would be sitting the number 35 overall pick. So like almost, a very late first there. And obviously the Bears are going to continue to be bad here, I think. So, I mean, this is a great move. What's going on here? Usually we get on the podcast and rip the Giants and the Commanders for doing dumb things. Now they're doing smart things. I don't like this. I think this is a very smart move, and it's also concerning it's especially concerning because, and it must feel great if you're a Commanders fan, because there was concern that, okay, they're not actually going to make moves at the deadline because Ron Rivera doesn't benefit from that. He's a lame duck head coach. He has to do everything in his mind to try to win now still, even though that's clearly DOA. So they're clearly not operating that way, which is smart. They shouldn't be. And they also shouldn't be allowing just a week 8 game against the Eagles to dictate whether they're like on the right track or not. But hey, it worked out to where they are selling. And I don't think they shouldn't sell both guys. You can't just sell everyone. Like, it doesn't need to be a fire sale. I think the thing is that you have to wonder potentially, can you re-sign all of them? And I think it makes sense to pick between Tayshaun and Montez Sweat. And it seems like that's what they did here. I don't think you need to definitely sell both because you can just re-sign Chase Young potentially or tag him, whatever.
You can't get a second round compensatory pick. So it's important to get, right? Like you can only get a third at the highest. So it's important to get one. You know what I mean? If you can.
And those are late in the round. Those are after the round. This is a very high second round pick.
Oh, you're talking about even like traditional like compensatory picks in general. Like even if Montez Sweat had walked, to your point, at best you're getting a third round. Like let's pick third, 100, 101, whatever.
Yep.
So like you're getting, to your point, pick like 35 at this point in time. Yeah. Just a huge win for the Commanders. And again, you might still re-sign Chase Young. Maybe he's not the player they move next if they do move somebody. If we had to forecast, maybe they move Jacoby Brissett. I know there's a lot of people who want to see him wind up in Atlanta or Minnesota. Obviously in the Kirk Cousins fallout. But I do think this is valuable. Like you're making your operation enticing for people, right? Like you're acquiring assets. So whoever you're going to bring in your front office or your coaching staff, they're coming into a place that has a lot to work with. If you do another rebrand, you should just suck it up, just deal with it, just get through you're almost done through, crawling through all this. I mean, it will be an advantageous spot for someone to be in, like a sports rabid town and market, whatever. Like, it's a bummer to see the Commanders do this. This is the worst thing that we have seen happen to us this year was Dan Snyder selling. Again, as it relates to our selfish interests, this is number 2 on that list, because this is them accepting what the current status of things is, which we didn't want to see.
Yeah, it's not fun, but hey, Commanders fans have put up with a lot, so I guess they deserve it.
Do we want to offer any predictions in terms of trades? If any, do we think the Giants or Commanders are going to be able to trade anybody else before the deadline, which is in the future for us, but the past for the listeners?
They should. I don't want to get into that because, I don't know what the point of speculating is when the listeners will know. I think it's possible, but and the Brissett one makes a lot of sense, especially because what's the point of hanging on to him? Get anything you can for him.
I did want to mention this. I don't know if you saw this right before we started recording. Brandon was catching up, so maybe you missed this. There are reports that the New England Patriots have received calls.
I did see that
about Zeke Elliott.
What if the Eagles trade for him and then he's facing the Cowboys again?
So I actually tweeted. I was like, if this I said if this, and what I meant, obviously, the implication was like if the Cowboys trade for him on Halloween. In the week of Cowboys Eagles, it would just be like incredible. Like it would, I would applaud the script writers in that sense. I mean, I don't know. I always think it's silly how some teams like let trades happen. Like, do you remember when Marshawn Lynch got traded to Oakland at the time? And it was like the Seahawks just like let that happen. And like, cool, that was really nice of you.
Because he came out of retirement, right?
Right. But he came out of retirement specifically to go play for them. But the Seahawks held his rights. And so, like, again, it's a cool thing of the Seahawks to do, like, credit to them. But like, Why would you
Well,
just do that? Like, like
because what's the alternative? They just want to get nothing for him? Might as well get something for him. You're trading him to a bad team in the other
that might
conference.
not be a good example. A better example is when Aaron Rodgers wanted Randall Cobb, who was on the Houston Texans at the time. So like if you're the Texans, like why do you just like, oh here, okay, cool,
Right.
sixth
Yeah,
round pick?
your
Like
your
what?
your point
Like
is like don't just do things out of charity. And I agree with that. But I'm saying
yeah,
in
like
that case the Seahawks had some motivation to do it. And I agree with what you're saying. Yeah, don't
so
just
yeah,
do
the Randall
things.
Cobb example is much better. But
Yeah.
so like, if you were the Packers and I was the Texans and you were like, hey dude, Aaron Rodgers will only play if we have Randall Cobb. So we need
There,
him. I'd be like, okay, cool, second round pick.
this is
Like,
really in the weeds, but there is obviously a long game to play here in terms of having relationships with other general managers and thinking that that might be able to help you, do another deal with that team down the road potentially. So there is some of that at play, but in general, I agree with what you're saying.
I suppose, but I wonder if we do see that kind of trade. If the Cowboys were to acquire Zeke Elliott, I think it would be something like that. Like, hey man, everybody wants this. It has to happen in terms of like there has to be some sort of quid pro quo. Let's get it done. Whatever. I don't think it's happening personally, but it would be absolutely hilarious if I'm being honest.
Okay.
What if, on a scale of 1 to 10, how mad would you be if it did happen and he scored a touchdown on Sunday?
I mean, I wouldn't like the scoring a touchdown part, but I'm not like mad about it. I don't think that's like a great move by the Cowboys. It's probably a fine move given what they would have to give up for him. I'm assuming it's not anything absurd.
By the way, just now, Dan Graziano, NFC East mixtape legend. Maybe not mixtape legend, but
Yeah,
certainly
wait,
NFC
he's
East
never
legend.
been on here.
I know, but like a legend in terms of what he's contributed to the division over time. But anyway, he just
Hmm.
tweeted that the Cowboys are not initiating trade talks, that they have received some calls from teams wondering if they would deal their defensive depth. But it doesn't sound like they're
Why?
on the verge of
Why would
anything.
they?
I mean, again, quid pro quo. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah, but
just,
you're not selling. You're all in. Unless
well,
there's just a spot where you're just ridiculous, like the Eagles were ridiculously loaded somewhere down the depth chart.
you could argue that that's the case at pass rusher. Maybe they deal Dorrance Armstrong, Sam
Okay.
Williams, something like that. But I mean, again, that's neither here nor there. Okay. The Giants are actually, I need to look in chronological order. It's been a mess of an episode. There's just too much happening. We're
Got to
not
pull
built
up
for
the
things like
odds.
this. I'm working on it. That's what I was kind of getting at. I was stalling to buy time, but then you ruined it. So now I have to stall in a different way. So way to go, Brandon. That was mean. Anyway, we will discuss all of the games on Friday on TGI Football. But for now, the Washington Commanders are up first. They are visiting the New England Patriots, whether or not Zeke Elliott is a part of them. And the Commanders are laying 3.5. This is in the noon window. I'm sorry, they're
I'll
getting
take
three
the.
and a half. The Commanders are getting three
Yeah,
and a half.
I thought so. I'll actually take the Patriots at home with the points because the Commanders have not looked good against other teams. Against the Eagles, yes. Against other teams, no. And they got worse by losing Montez Sweat. And we'll see if they trade anyone else, but they could potentially be getting even worse if they're selling off more pieces. So I know the Patriots have been bad in general, but they've shown like a little bit more life recently. So, and they're home and they're getting points. So I'll take the points.
I'm not trying to get too into like Team Tank, but the Commanders have just announced that they have no interest or they don't believe in competing this season. So yeah, they have lost all incentive to win. Meanwhile, the Patriots seem to be a little bit more involved. Obviously, they have a little bit more things to chase if you are getting like deeper about it, like Belichick and the all-time wins record and things like that. So I'll take the Patriots as well, and I'll lay the points. Unless the
No, you're
Commanders
getting
are
the
playing the
points.
Eagles, they're hard to believe. Yeah, I'll lay the points. But unless the Commanders are playing the
No, you're
Eagles, I
lay. I
don't
think
believe in
you
them.
lay the points. I thought meant like you give the points. You're getting the
Yeah,
points.
I'm laying the points. I'm taking the Patriots. I'm laying 3.5.
I thought when you said lay, I thought when you used laying, I thought that means that you're giving the
If
points though.
I'm laying the points, I'm giving the better the
No,
points.
you're
I'm taking
getting the
Patriots
points.
-3. I'm
You're
taking the
getting
Patriots.
points.
No,
I
I'm
thought the
not.
Patriots were dogs.
I said that at the beginning. I corrected myself. They're three and a
Oh,
half
I'm
point
all
favorites. The Patriots
confused.
are.
Oh, the Patriots are favorites. Oh, that's different.
Yes.
I thought they were underdogs.
What a mess of an episode.
Wow.
Yeah, I will. Despite your thought,
See,
whatever.
usually
I will
we
take the
have
Patriots and
the
lay
graphic on the
three and a
screen
half
on
points.
TGI Football, and that helps me out here. But I'm not looking at it. I need to see it.
I'm
I'll
laying
still
three
take
and a
the
half.
Patriots. Whatever. Yeah,
Are you laying the points?
I'm taking the Patriots to win the game and cover.
The Giants and Raiders are going to have a lot of
Ugh.
ratings, but like no ratings because they're playing at the same
What an
time
awful
as
game.
the as the Cowboys and Eagles. Um, yeah, Patrick Graham revenge though. The
Yeah,
Raiders in Las Vegas don't even have a 3-point home field advantage against the Giants, dude. They're
that's
2-point
sad.
favorites. Yeah.
Against a Giants team that doesn't even have like a definitive quarterback. I guess Daniel Jones has been cleared, but like, what's his status truly in terms of being healthy and effective?
I will take
Um,
I will take the Raiders and lay
what's
the points.
how much are they
2.
favored by?
2.
I'll take the Giants. Screw it.
Okay. You can
Raiders
tell.
look so bad, dude. That Lions game, so bad.
Oh, I know. So I wanted to say something in advance of the Cowboys Eagles game, and we'll obviously have a lot to say about it on the live show. But this was so predictable. I should have realized, and I was mad at myself on Monday night when I had the World Series on the iPad, and they were advertising because it was on Fox the Cowboys Eagles game this week, and I thought to myself, "Damn it! I should have the moment that the World Series schedule came out, like whenever it was." I should have been able to like predict that would have been the week that Cowboys Eagles, would have been. Because like, of course, they're going to use the World Series to like push the Cowboys Eagles game, blah, 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 because that game's going to do monster numbers. But you can really tell when the NFL wants a 3 o'clock game to like be the only one that everybody gets. Do you know how many games there are since I've asked you a million do you knows? Do you know how many there are this week?
In the 4 o'clock window,
Yeah, at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, whatever you want to call it.
2.
There are 3 games. Okay. One of them is Cowboys Eagles. One of them is Raiders Giants, which you just said, what an awful game. The other is
No one's watching that.
the Frank Reich revenge game, the Colts in Carolina.
No one's watching. Yeah, no one's watching any of those
Those
other
are the
games.
3 o'clock games for this game or for this week. So that's what I'm saying. Like the NFL is very strategically sacrificing, the Giants, Raiders, Panthers, and Colts so that everyone can effectively have a national broadcast during the 3 o'clock window before the Sunday night broadcast that is Bills Bengals.
Is the distribution map up yet? I want to look that
It
up.
might not be because it's Tuesday for us. It usually takes
looking at 506sports.com to see if that's up.
It is going to be
no, not up yet.
It is going to be everywhere. Like
it'll be everywhere except literally in whatever, Indianapolis.
I know you don't play fantasy, but do you watch the Red Zone channel often?
Sometimes.
So they have a rule. I don't know if you know this, but like this happens in the 3 o'clock window sometimes, where if there's only one game on, like say there's 4 games and 3 of them have ended, they cannot broadcast the 4th game because of they're effectively rebroadcasting it. That changes what they're doing fundamentally. So if that happens, they have to bow out and they push you to your local broadcaster. But my point is like whatever number this game does from a rating standpoint, it will technically not include the red zone, which is effectively like Scott Hansen is not leaving Cowboys Eagles for anything except to show us a few touchdowns and interceptions. You know what I'm saying? Like it is, this game is going to be all over every single TV in the world on Sunday afternoon.
Sure.
But if we want to pick it now, I don't know if we want to save it.
We're not. No, we can't pick it yet. I mean, we can talk about the matchup a little, but I think it spoils the pick. I mean, we should save the pick for the Thursday show. What's the point of even doing the Thursday show if we make the pick now?
By the way,
it's also too early in the week for such a big matchup.
By the way, on the subject of that, we're supposed to have, at least our plan right now is 5 total people, ourselves included, on Thursday's live show. So we'll have everyone, ourselves included, offer a pick. So we'll have a 3-2. You know what I mean? We'll have a tiebreaker at the very least.
Wow.
But the Eagles are 3-point favorites, true home field advantage. This is the game.
They opened up at 2.5 in some places. So a little disrespect there.
I only saw 3.
I don't want to say the name of the outlet because we're a DraftKings Sportsbook show here, but I saw some other outlets that had. I'm not making this up. I did see 2, and it's another. It's not like some weird random book. It's another notable book that is not good as DraftKings Sportsbook.
Okay. Well,
and it. Shout out to them. At DK, it's only been 3. Yes, but there was a little bit.
Just and for more context on that, I checked because DK has odds sometimes a week and a half out. It was like a week ago today that I checked, and it was 3. There was no movement after week 8. Is my point. This is what we've been asking for a very, very, very long time. To see
how did we make
Cowboys, it here? Against the Jalen-led Eagles. We have seen it once before, but
I'm getting nervous even you saying that. Like I feel like I don't even want to acknowledge it because I feel like Dak Prescott and Jalen Hurts somehow both stub their toe super hard before the game and can't play. Like, it almost feels too good to
Um,
be true.
it's really fun and exciting. I mean, to recap, in the Dak era, because he's the longest tenured quarterback in the with his team in the NFL, but certainly in this rivalry. So 2016, the first matchup was great. It was actually kind of around this time of year. I think it was October 30th, and it was the Dak Cowboys against the Wentz Eagles. Went to overtime. Cowboys had the game winner and won. Week 17, though, Dallas had the 1 seed wrapped up. Philly was out. The game was inconsequential.
Mark
2017.
Sanchez played in that game, and that was Tony Romo's last game, and he lost
That's
to the
right. He
Eagles.
threw a touchdown to Terrence Williams.
He
Well,
lost to the Eagles
he
in his
didn't
final
lose.
game.
Dak
In the
was
final
credited with
game
that.
that Tony Romo played in the NFL, the Cowboys
The
lost to
rent
the
free
Eagles.
is just really hilarious at this point. Anyway, so 2017, the first matchup was at the time the worst loss in AT&T Stadium history on the night that Jerry Jones was honored for
You
going into the
had
Hall of Fame.
Kamu Grugier-Hill was kicking off in that game because Jake Elliott got hurt.
In 2017?
Yeah.
Okay, so it was over really kind of before it started. Like that was Jay Ajayi. Like everything went up Eagles. And then similarly, week 17, this was before 18 games or 17 games rather. Week 17, the Eagles had clinched the 1 seed. They were going to win the Super Bowl, but Dallas won a gross game, 6-0.
6-0.
And then
That was such a bad game.
2018, the first matchup was great. And it was Wentz kind of like trying to hold on. The first matchup was in Philly. I'm sorry, in 2018. And that was the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was that was Leighton Vander Esch had the pick, and Dak had the weird like dropped bounce pass fumble that he recovered. Dallas won that. That was the Zeke Hurdle game, of course. How could I forget?
know. I remember that.
And then the second matchup, that was the last time we got 2 great games. Was in Dallas. I believe Carson Wentz's last start of the year in 2018, and went to overtime. And Amari Cooper had like 200 million yards and caught the game-winning touchdown that was tipped. That was the Kamu Grugier-Hill game that everybody remembers.
So that's the no clear recovery game, which is just the most insane.
That was the second game in 2018.
That's insane. I can't get over that.
In 2019, the first game, Dallas blew out the Eagles on Sunday Night Football. That was the Dak hip dance. That was where that was born, and then that became like a thing. And then there was the second game in 2019, which was just a really flat performance for Dallas that the Eagles won when Carson Wentz was hurt again. And that was kind of if you want to talk about like an era ending in Philly, it was the Jason Garrett era. It ended that day against the Eagles in Philadelphia.
Oh, late in 2019.
And then
Dak was hurt.
That was the last like real consequential game that the two, because it was kind of, it wasn't for the division, but it was effectively for the division. And then 2020, the first matchup, Carson Wentz blew out the Ben DiNucci led Cowboys. And the second one, Andy Dalton blew out rookie Jalen Hurts at AT&T
Do you remember
Stadium.
who Jalen Hurts threw a touchdown pass to in that game?
In 2020 at AT&T Stadium?
Yeah, it was like the first play of the game, and then he didn't play again the rest of the game, and then basically didn't play for the Eagles ever again, I think, at that point.
Deshaun Jackson? Was that the return? Yeah. And so that was 2020. And then 21, the first matchup was on Monday Night Football. That was the only Dak Hurts game that we got. Cowboys blew them out. And then
also like a very different version of what the Eagles are. I'm not saying it doesn't count. I'm just saying like the Eagles have like they're night and day from that point to where they are now.
That was also, and we've talked about this since, the beat Dallas shirt game for Nick Sirianni. And then 2021, they met in the first week 18 that the NFL had. And that was on a Saturday, though. And that was they had both locked up their playoff positioning. Dallas just, got a bunch of records and then lost in the wild card round. Mm-hmm. Well, they both lost in the wild card round, actually, a week later. And then last year, we got Hurts Rush in Philly. And then we got Dak Minshew at AT&T Stadium. And, of course, 3rd and 30. So, yeah, that's where we're at.
So, yeah, this is the first meaningful consequential Eagles and a huge one. Again, a lot on the line here. I mentioned earlier the stakes. If the Cowboys win this game, if the Eagles win this game, they're 8-1. They go into the bye week. They have this cushion over the Cowboys.
I was going to use the term breathing room. Yeah, like Eagles win this game, and it's you can take a breath until Thanksgiving, I'd say.
Well, especially going into this stretch, it's like, yeah, we have this tough stretch coming up here, but hey, we have some margin for error. Like, the Eagles don't have to dominate this stretch. They don't have to go undefeated. They have to go probably 3-3 at least, I would say, and they have to at least win one over the Cowboys. If you told any Eagles fan that, hey, sign here for 4-2 and at least one is over the Cowboys, yeah, I mean anyone's doing that. Anyone's accepting 2 losses only out of that stretch. That'd be a really, really, really good result. And I think 3-3, more modestly, is probably what you're realistically hoping for. And again, at least one win over the Cowboys. If it's both, then you'll also take that. But yeah, it's a huge game. Looking forward to previewing it more. Definitely need to get a better sense of the injury reports right now. I'm not ready to make a pick. Honestly, it's too early in the week. I have to see the injury reports. I have to see how the vibes are in terms of
the trade deadline. And
trade deadline.
If anything happens, at the 11th hour.
Is any team chirping at each other this week, giving each other bulletin board material? There's a lot to figure out before Sunday's game, but I am very confident it'll be a good one, finally, as it should be, between Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott.
It's so big. It's so important that we're doing a second show. Once again, live NFC East mixtape Thursday night. That is November 2nd at 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central. For sure on the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel, streaming live. But at the very least, it'll be repurposed on the blog, the Bleeding Green Nation one. We'll, again, have all points of access for you available every single place that you consume content. We will podcast them as well on both feeds. It's song time, Brandon. Rachel. Oh, which also, by the way, means you get 2 songs from each of us this week and some songs from our guests. On Thursday.
I don't know if we're doing it again, but okay, we can.
What do you mean if we're doing it? We have to. It's an episode of the mixtape. How could we not add songs?
It's a live show. It's different.
Okay, we have to have it makes sense. Well, no, okay. How about this? The condition is the songs have to be live, like live recordings. Like it has to be a live recording of a song.
No.
Yes. Come on.
That makes it so hard, though, for the guests.
They exist. Do you not know that we live in an era where music is accessible and identifiable, like more than it's ever been? Like, come on, don't be lazy.
I think you can do that if you want to.
Mr. Like, I come up with A, B, C, D, E, F, G Halloween song. Can't come up with a live version of a song. Come on.
the alphabet Halloween song.
Yeah, whatever it was called. That was too difficult to find.
Johann Sebastian Bach, man.
Anyway, Rachel's song for the recorded episode this week is Hip Hip Hooray, Hip Hop Hooray by Naughty by Nature. An excellent song choice by Rachel. As always, Brandon, I usually go first, but I would like you to this week.
Really? Are you sure?
Brandon
Why don't you go first?
Ready. Ooh, Brandon was not ready. He's been exposed.
I'm ready. I think you should go first.
I have added a song by this artist before. And so I think this is the first doubling up we're doing. I know you said you wanted to avoid that.
It doesn't matter. I didn't want to do it personally.
If any artist is going to appear twice in this football season, it should be Taylor Swift. She re-released her 1989 album, and the song Style is one of the coolest songs I've ever heard by any artist ever. So I'm going with the new version of Style by Taylor Swift.
This is a different album than the one you picked from previously?
I believe so.
I think that's okay. I think we don't really want to double up too much on the same album. I mean, I would still avoid doing it, but I would try to avoid doing the same album. For my pick. For my pick.
Oh my gosh, the podcast science is really missing a lot today. Wow.
Very on brand. For when this is being recorded, obviously the day it drops is the day after this day. But, I mean, how could I not pick This Is Halloween by whoever as This Is Halloween from The Nightmare Before Christmas. So that's my pick.
Wow. I was going to ask if it was an orange light. I couldn't tell when you first turned your lamp off or whatever. It is. Or I guess it's a light in an orange lantern. But okay. Wow. Good for you, BLG. What if I had picked that song?
That would have been... I knew you weren't because you've never seen the movie. I mean, that would be a very weird pick for you to make.
Are you going to watch the movie today?
Are
you going to watch the movie today?
Probably. I watched the second half of I forget the exact name of it, but it's the Legend of Sleepy Hollow Disney thing. I was watching that last week. Underrated. I like the Legend of Sleepy Hollow as a concept. The Tim Burton movie is very scary, but at least to me, I'm a big coward when it comes to horror, but I still like it. I like the concept. It's very cool to me. This spooky thing that, you're just out at night and there's this, ghostly specter riding around without a head and carrying a pumpkin, and you have to cross the bridge. You have to get over the bridge before he does, and then you're safe. I like it.
Cool. That's it. Episode 1 of 2 this week. Brandon, as we leave, give us your top 3 Halloween candies, something nobody will do this week. It could be in any order you want.
Candies.
Actually, let
Top
me
3.
get more specific. Things that you hope, candies you hope to eat today, Tuesday.
I don't think I'll be eating any. I hope
Okay, if
maybe
you
I'm wrong
did,
about that, but if I did, I would want some Sour Patch Kids, absolutely. We'll go with the Twix bar again because we brought it
mini
up earlier.
or fun size or regular.
We'll go fun size,
Okay, all
mini.
right. One more.
And then I really, this is more of a personal thing than like I'm trying to get points of the audience thing, but I wouldn't mind York peppermint patty. Happy Halloween.